This is a rock star.
Right.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Another episode of The Truth Matters. My name is Apollo, still filling in for Tina Peters, now 568 days later that she has been in prison. You may have seen some movement of filings in Tina's case. The website you see on screen is, of course, Tina's website, tinapeters.us. You can go to the reports and filing page right at the top there, and you will be able to view them all yourself. But I'm going to go over a few. Recently, filings were made going to the appellate court as to a few points that they walked around, and then I've talked about on the show the last time that they basically walked around and ignored in their response to her. And I've talked about several of those, and others have as well. But most recently, there were filings regarding the district court and Judge Barrett. Judge Barrett, of course, released something that stated basically that he had spoken to Governor Polis in this correspondence here that says regarding Tina Peters' petition for clemency in Mesa County District Court case. And it reads, Governor Polis, thanks for your time to review this correspondence as I follow up with your chief legal counsel. After careful reflection over the weekend and in light of our extremely busy schedules, this letter is the best course of action. At this time, after having presided over the case for over 2 years, I carefully considered her individual circumstances, considered her lack of accountability, conduct, the nature of the underlying facts. I chose a sentence in roughly the midpoint of the presumptive ranges that this state's General Assembly has set. My reasons for the punishment I chose are more specifically detailed in the remarks I made at her sentencing. This is actually an interesting way to play this on Judge Barrett's part, because his remarks at sentencing were what the appellate court used to declare his sentencing of her a violation of her First Amendment. They specifically said, yes, Judge Barrett violated her rights. And he specifically says that the remarks he made at his sentencing are the reason he sentenced her to these consecutive terms. So a bit of an interesting response, but he does seem to be saying, at least through his teeth, hey, I'm not going to reverse my position on this, is my feeling. And I don't think that should be surprising to anyone. Defendant's response to Judge Barrett's order, this filed not long ago at all, 3 hours after Peters filed her verified motion to disqualify Judge Barrett. He posed in the public case file a copy of his personal correspondence with Polis and his attorney. And he wrote, again, my reasons, more specifically detailed in the remarks I made at her sentencing. So, interesting situation, especially given that Governor Polis himself has called out the ridiculous sentencing disparities of Tina Peters versus the Democratic senator, Sonia Lewis, here in Colorado. So I want you all to know that Tina really does need your prayers right now. Now, I think there are some things that could give us some relief, specifically on the First Amendment. Either way, she has a very long road ahead of her. So I'm not going to get into too many details right now. There will be a follow-up to this show Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you're there for that. Make sure you're following at Real Tina Peters on Rumble and on X, of course. And if you go to tinapeters.us, right there on the homepage, make sure that you sign up for email alerts when you arrive at the site. You'll see the pop-up, and you can get all the latest first from Tina Peters. She super appreciates it, and so do we, truly. So next we're going to bring in Mark and amazing guests Ed and Andy, and we're going to talk about something that they don't want to talk about, which is lockstep parallel motion. And I'll say that again, lockstep parallel motion. If you don't know what that is, you may not have been following Ed, and Mark has certainly been talking about it as well. But this is a mathematical concept that many of these cases that Ed has been testifying in, is called as a witness, and has been presenting his research in, you can't refute it the way that they have been trying to. And we've seen so much dismissed on standing, and they continue to puppet the lie that there's no evidence of fraud. And how can you prove it? Well, Tina Peters showed evidence that the Secretary of State deleted records. They're criminals. They put Tina Peters in prison because she has the evidence. So we're going to get to our show now. We're going to bring in our guests. But please, before we do, I want to just read a couple short notes because we get some really amazing prayers from all of you and some amazing messages. So I just want to shout out a few who have been sending those. This one from Sheila, and it says, Dear Father in heaven, look at the affliction of Tina and rescue her. Plead her cause and redeem her. Revive her according to your word. Salvation is far from the wicked, for they do not seek your statutes. Great are your mercies, O Lord. Revive her according to your ordinances. Many are her persecutors and her adversaries. Yet she does not turn aside from your testimonies. She beholds the treacherous and loathes them, because they do not keep your word. Consider how Tina loves your precepts. Revive her, O Lord, according to your loving kindness. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous ordinances is everlasting. So thank you, Sheila. One more from Don. You are a warrior. That says warrior, but warrior like your son Tina. Stay strong, Tina. We are all praying for you, gorgeous lady. Thank you for that message, Don. And this one, I don't actually know who it's from. They didn't leave a name, but dear Tina, in the darkness of this morning, I was testing AA batteries and 2 flashlights to see which ones still had a charge. My focus was on the amount of light the batteries produced. As I continue to pray for you, I'm reminded of a psalm based on Psalms. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid, I think I've lost my way, still you're right there beside me. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near. Please be near to me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will not forget your love for me, and let my heart forever is wandering, Jesus, be my guide, and hold me to your side. I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So whoever you are, thank you as well. We really appreciate all the messages we get, and Tina does. So if you can support Tina Peters, please go to her website. You can get alerts there, find all the case filings. But if you can donate anything, I'm just going to be honest, Tina still has a long road ahead of her, and she's going to have a very long fight going to the Supreme Court, but also through what you can still see is quite a mess involving somehow the same Judge Barrett who was ruled to have violated her rights so fundamentally, and him now interacting with Polis. So no matter what, whether they let her out, Tina really does need your help. Please, if you go to the homepage, you can donate to her legal defense, and she really does need it. And you can also donate to her personal expenses, and she could really use that too. I'm just going to be honest with all of you. This fight has been very difficult for Tina, and it's cost her a lot on her personal side as well. So if you can help her keep the attorneys working, and just help her build up so that she can sustain what's going to be required to go through the Supreme Court, and help her take care of her personal expenses too, because I'm not going to talk about those, but there are a lot, and we appreciate for everybody who's helped. But if you can help Tina, she really does need it. She's only been able to keep going through this fight because of all of you, because of the prayers, and because of all of you who have donated to keep her funded through all of this. So thank you to all of you who have, and make sure that you're following, make sure you're subscribed. And if you do nothing else, send a prayer for Tina, share her website, and share her story, because her story is our story, and it's going to affect all of us in ways that many of us haven't seen yet. But I'm sure that very soon everyone will know the name Tina Peters and understand what it is that she did. So now we're going to go to our guests.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks, Apollo. I appreciate it. So yeah, my name is Mark Cook, and I am a Colorado native. IT is my background. I've been in business for 40 plus years now. And I used to be a Democrat, became a Republican some recent years. I've been Democrat longer than I was Republican, actually, surprisingly. And I was curious about our elections. I was asked to go out and take a look at them out in DC right after the 2020 election. I'm a computer guy, so I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And especially since our elections are based on a bunch of computer stuff that I'm very intimately familiar with, the same operating systems, a lot of the same hardware. And so I dove in, started to look at it, and I identified, and it helped me a lot because I didn't understand the complexity of our systems, how our elections worked. I thought the whole country used the same election system at the time. Now, of course, I've learned who all the players are and all the different components of it and how everything fits together. And I looked at this whole thing and thought, wow, what a giant disaster. What a big mess. And so many possibilities for a bad actor, sophisticated bad actor to manipulate this stuff. I thought, well, gosh, we must have protections all over the place. But what I was out there for in DC was to help identify where the manipulation happened, if it did, in the 2020 election. So I looked at that whole system as uh, a platform for manipulation and tried to identify all the different areas that it could be manipulated. And if it was manipulated in this area, what would we see? If it was manipulated in this area, what would we see? And I created this diagram. And I was hoping to be able to start investigating. I wanted to do an audit of some election departments and actually see if we found some of that evidence there that would indicate that there was manipulation. Unfortunately, some things happened, and the audit that I was supposed to do out in Sacramento County, California, I wasn't able to do. But I started seeing a lot of these symptoms of manipulation throughout the years now. I've been traveling the country state by state, county by county. Now I travel in a truck and a trailer, and I'm trying to really investigate all this in every single county I go to. And I have seen a pattern of these symptoms of manipulation. And there's many different symptoms, and there are many types of manipulation. And I'm not making this stuff up, and I'm not seeing things. I literally, it's there, and it's bad, and it's across our entire nation. And I just want the truth. I want the people's will to be accurately reflected in our elections. We have no nation if we do not have that. So that's what I've been doing. I'm right now in Georgia, uh, and I have been for the past couple of weeks. I was at the Capitol past week. I spoke to a lot of legislators. I testified. If you follow me at Patriot Mark Cook on X, you'll see some of the testimony, and I'll be putting out some more of that as well, just shining a light on what we've got here. We have symptoms of manipulation all over the place. But the one thing I'm really happy about is Ed Solomon. This man is an absolute genius. So these voting systems, just so you understand how they're set up, you stuff ballots in them, they give you results out. Then you have this thing called a cast vote record that comes out of these machines. And the cast vote record is supposed to be an indication of every single ballot and every choice on every single ballot. And our election officials, they press a button and get the report out, and they hand it off to the citizens. I think most cases our election officials are actually good people, but the system, it can be manipulated in a way the election officials can't even see it. And I'm not saying every election official is good. I think most of them are, though. But what's brilliant about what Ed has done is when we take this data and we look at it, he just has a gift, and his gift allowed him to see a pattern in that data that many people had not seen. Now, election fraud's gone on a long time. Older cast vote records is pretty obvious when there was election manipulation. You could see weird patterns in it, but it was obvious. And every iteration of our elections, they get better and better at hiding the fraud, hiding the manipulation within the data. Ed has a gift. This man has a gift, and he was able to see it. And then he was able to reverse engineer it and figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. Total brilliance. Love the man, and I am so excited to hand it off to him because you have to see what he has found.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the main exhibit of our lawsuit in Nevada with Pastor Andy Thompson. It also occurred in Colorado and in Mesa County. It was also part of our documentation and exhibits in the Nevada case because it was done by the same vendor, Dominion, okay, in both Colorado and Nevada. Then I'm going to show you Mesa County 2021. You're going to see the exact same result pattern called LOCKSTEP parallel motion. Then I'm going to show you Alaska 2025, where it happens again. In fact, there's not a single election where I can't find this not happening because they're rigging them all everywhere that they can. So the beauty about LOCKSTEP parallel motion that you're about to see is that there is no counter argument to it. There's no maybe if this or that. the moment you see this graph, and I tell you what this graph is showing you, you absolutely know 110% our elections are rigged at an industrial scale. No counter argument, nothing, no response. It's why they keep stopping us or delaying us from going to trial now for about 1.5 years in 2 different court cases with lockstep parallel motion. So what is this graph in front of us, okay? We're looking at how Trump and Kamala voters cast their ballot on state question 3 in Clark County, Nevada in 2024. So state question 3 was to adopt ranked choice voting and open primaries for all future elections. It was a constitutional amendment. And there were nearly 1 million ballots cast in Clark County in the early election day and mail-in vote combined. But we're only looking at 443,000 of those ballots, which are all of the mail-in and the mail-in ballots only. Okay. And the cast vote record shows us how Trump, it could show that when I look at the cast vote record, there's 443,000 rows for each ballot in Excel. And it tells me if that person voted for Trump or for Kamala. And it tells me if they voted yes or no on state question 3. Now, if you just look at the overall yes to no ratio, regardless of how people voted for president, you don't see anything wrong with this election. But when you split it by Trump and Kamala voters, you see I don't even have to explain to you why it's impossible. So let's talk about this picture now. So we have 443,000 mail-in ballots. 3% of that is 13,000. So it's just an arbitrary number I chose. We're going to ask in each consecutive group of 13,000 ballots, how did Trump and Kamala voters decide on state question 3? So if we look here, it says 50%, okay? So the x-axis is the percentage of the mail-in ballots counted. So at 50%, 50% of 443, it's about 220,000, okay? So this would be about 300,000, it's about 100,000. So the x-axis is time, but not human time in minutes and seconds and days. It's ballot time, where the percentage of ballots counted is the tick of the clock. Okay, each ballot is like on a timing belt on a car. So let's go to halfway through the election here, about 220,000 ballots in. And what this tells us is that for the 13,000 ballots cast at this moment, that roughly 67% of Trump voters were against state question 3. Okay, this is the percentage that are opposed, not in favor. And at the same time, roughly 45% of Kamala voters were also opposed. Now, if we go to about 25% into the election, we see that Trump voters here were 60% opposed and Kamala voters were 45% opposed. Okay. So is there anything wrong with Trump voters being more likely to oppose ranked choice voting in open primaries than Kamala voters? No. Okay, we actually expect there to be a greater opposition to this than amongst Democrats. So there's nothing wrong with the general difference of about 20, 30% between Trump and Kamala voters. Okay. What's wrong is what's called the rate of change for between every consecutive pair of 13,000 ballots. So this is where I caught them. Notice in the yellow regions where Trump voters go up, Kamala voters go up by the exact same amount at the exact same time in the election. And the green regions, when Trump voters go down, Kamala voters go down at the exact same time. And this happens for the first 80% of the mail-in ballots cast, which is about 350,000. So for 350,000 consecutive ballots, whatever Trump voters do, Kamala voters mirror them. And this keeps happening for the entire election. But then when you get to the last 20% of the election, they don't mirror each other anymore, even though they have the same general downward trajectory. So what happened at this 80%? Remember, we're only looking at the mail-in ballots. Well, this is when election day happened, even though the election day vote's not in here. So after election day, somebody changed the algorithm they were using to rig the election. That's what happened. The early vote happens here. But notice that the first mail-in vote is in this lockstep parallel motion between Trump and Kamala voters. And even after the early vote, which is here, they remain in lockstep parallel motion. Then when you get to the election day vote around here, the mail-in vote, they have the same, again, like I said, general downward trajectory, cumulative-wise, but they're no longer the rates of change. So now, if we go look at the rates of change only, okay? So all we're doing is taking these lines and we're subtracting the opposition percentage of Trump voters for themselves, 13,000 ballots before. In math, we call this the first derivative, or as close as we can get to it. The same thing for the Kamala voters. And when we do that, if you're any good at math, you can now see how absurd this is that Trump and Kamala voters would change
So
by the
basically, what you're
exact same
saying,
amount, the exact same time for the entire election until the election day vote itself at 80%.
okay, so you're saying that as Trump voters, let's say they raise their opposition to RCV, that Biden voters or Kamala voters are also raising their opposition at the same time. And then when
Yes.
Trump voters lower it, the others also lower it
Yes,
at
and
the same
remember,
time.
this is
Same way.
mail-in voting. So it's random ballots coming in from all over the county at random times, from random places, from random post offices and random drop boxes, all to central counting, and yet they have this perfect coordination. So if you look at the postmarks, let's say that they put 100,000 ballots through the scanner over an hour. The postmarks are going to be plus or minus 3 days from the median. So it's not like this could even be temporally coordinated or lucky. Okay. And to show this, this is the same graph with the rates of change. Okay. It's state question 3. And all I do, this is the original election that they said happened in 2024, state question 3. Here's what's called a shuffle test. So I shuffle the order. I don't modify the ballots in the cast vote record. I just shuffle them like a deck of cards. And I only shuffle ballots with other ballots from the same precinct. So any geographic trends that may have been authentic would have been preserved. And when I do that, this
How would you
lockstep
explain
parallel
that
motion.
concept real quick? How would you explain that to a layman, the
So
shuffle test, and why it's important to do the shuffle
let's
test?
say ballot number 1, 100,000, and 1 million all belong to precinct Apple Blossom. When I shuffle the ballots, only the ballots in precinct Apple Blossom can be shuffled with each other. So maybe, Ed, Mark, and Andy voted on ballot 1, 100,000, and 1 million. When I shuffle them, there'll still be 3 ballots from precinct Apple Blossom on rows 1, 100,000, and 1 million. But instead of it being Ed, Andy, Mark, it might be Mark, Ed, Andy, or Andy, Ed, Mark.
So basically, what you're doing is you're randomizing the order in which the ballots are essentially counted here or processed, but you're keeping them in the same precinct and keeping them in the
Yes.
same order relative to all the other precincts as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, just hypothetically, if precinct Connecticut High School was every 10th ballot, 10, 20, 30, 40, just hypothetically, after I shuffled it, you'll only see there'll still only be ballots from precinct Connecticut High School on rows 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. There might be a different ballot from that precinct, but they'll always be from that precinct. So I call that a precinct preserved shuffle test, okay? Because it preserves any possible geographic trends. And when I do this shuffle test on the election, we go from the original result, which is Trump and Kamala voters doing the same thing at every moment in time, to complete random noise. like you would expect in a fair election. So here in the original election, the rates of change are synchronized. And you can see the correlation on the right, the scatter plot between these rates of changes is 0.90. That's very important. After the shuffle, there's a zero correlation, 0.00 correlation. And notice how the red and blue are in sync. Okay, this is what normal looks like, especially for 500,000 mail-in ballots.
So what you're saying is basically there is a correlation in the ordering of the ballots, even in each precinct, with relation to each other. And as soon as you randomize those ballots, keeping them in the same precincts, just changing the order of where they are in the cast vote record, but keeping them relative to each other, so you keep each precinct separate still, just like they were, all that disappears.
Yes, and we can measure this scientifically. So my friend Roger did 1 million of these shuffle tests. I only did 4,096 because I did it sort of manually in Excel where Roger automates it, but we both got the same result. Having a 0.9 correlation between the rates of change for 500,000 consecutive ballots is what's called a 12 sigma event. It's 1 with 30 zeros. That is the chance of that happening in a fair election. So for layman perspective, a 5 sigma event is a 1 in a 3.5, like 1 in 4 million chance. And a 5 sigma event gets you a Nobel Prize in particle physics because you've proven your theory to be true with it only being 1 in 4 million chance of being false. So
it's like the chances of Gilbert Godfrey being chosen in a parallel universe to be the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah, so
not going to happen.
Yeah, so when we say 12 sigma, that's like 2 Nobel Prizes for election fraud. This just can't happen. And this is not the only time we've seen this. Okay?
Right. So this is a pattern that is impossible to happen in real life, impossible to happen organically, and are incredibly improbable. I will say impossible. And we are seeing that. You're seeing it in the data, which means that it's controlled. The data is either totally controlled. They're pre-sorting all the ballots before they go into the machine, which would be impossible because they don't have time to do it all, or they're faking the data inside the machine somehow.
I'm going to show you exactly how it happens, okay? Real quick, this is a precinct preserved shuffle test diagram for the layman, okay? So columns A, B, and C are the original election. This is just 20 ballots, okay? And so you see precincts A, B, C, and D, and then it says Trump or Biden as the candidate choice. After I do the shuffle, notice that the same precinct ballots are in column F. So column B and F are the same, but there's different ballots for that precinct now in column G instead of column C. So we see that the smallest precinct just accounted is D. So we have Trump, Trump, Biden, Trump. So 3 Trump and a Biden. And then we count here after the shuffle, Trump, Trump, Biden, Trump. Okay, so you still have 3 Trumps and a Biden. So that's what a precinct preserved shuffle test is. That's the diagram. Now,
so in real life, let me hold on, go back up a little bit. In real life, if you zoom in a little on that, so if I was going to do a precinct preserved shuffle test and I actually had the physical paper ballots in my hand and I could go to these precincts, the equivalent of what you're showing here is if I went to precinct D and I said, let me see your 3 ballots, and I just shuffled those 3 ballots. I changed the order of the 3 ballots. And then I went to precinct A and did the same thing, and C and B, and I just shuffled those ballots. And then we ran this same test here. That's the equivalent.
Right. There would be no lockstep parallel motion.
And if we did that, all this behavior would disappear. So the order of the ballots in each precinct is unique to this behavior in the results, meaning that it's controlled. Okay,
yes.
Beautiful.
Now I'm going to show you what actually does this. This is empirical proof that they are flipping ballots from no to yes, okay? So it's called a county-wide uniform flip function, okay? And it's the only way to explain what we're seeing, okay? Mark, just talk for a few seconds before I show Arapahoe, because I got to find the picture for that.
And the reason I'm asking these questions, just so everyone knows, is because I want to make sure I got to reduce it to normie talk. Now, when I first started talking to Ed's talking up like here, and I'm trying to catch up. So it's taken me a while. And what I have to do is I've got to translate what Ed's saying into something that I can visualize, something I can explain to citizens. Okay, if you went and got your hands on the ballots and did this, this is what it's like. That's why I love, here, I got a deck of cards right here. Wonderful. Decks of cards make things really easy to explain when you've got stuff that's, in order here. And when you shuffle that deck of cards, all of a sudden, if patterns disappear just when you shuffle them, but you keep them in the right precincts, then you know that something actually caused that order to occur in the first place. And
All right.
and what he's saying is, in his many tests, when he said, we got 12 sigma here, what they're doing is they're shuffling it over and over and over again to see if we shuffle it enough times, can we ever get to an order that is the same pattern again? And the question is, no, you could shuffle it millions of times. You'll never get that same order. So if I had all these cards in order and I shuffled the deck and I kept shuffling this deck over and over and over again, would they ever be back in order again? Or no.
It's like everybody getting a royal flush, and not just for one game, for every for 10 games in a row.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So here's the last picture of Nevada I want to show you for now. I want Andy to get in there. Oh, two more. And this is the same thing. It's state question 3 in Nevada, the mail-in vote only. And we're looking at Trump and Kamala voters again. But now we're looking at different congressional districts, okay? So the green line is Congressional District 1, and the white line is Congressional District 3, okay? So green is Trump voters in Congressional District 1. White is Kamala voters in Congressional District 3. And again, the rates of change are identical, even though these are different choices for president, Trump and Kamala ballots, in different congressional districts. And this happens again between Congressional District 4 and 3, between Kamala and Trump voters. So this is absolutely impossible. And now I'm going to show you how it happens. It's called a uniform countywide uniform flip function. So in a fair election, especially for 500,000 ballots, everything should be a flat line, even over a moving window of 13,000 ballots.
Meaning Democrats are going to vote a certain way, Republicans will vote a certain way, and it's pretty consistent from the start to the finish.
Yes. So if 80% of Trump voters are against something, every time I take 13,000 ballots, roughly 80% of Trump voters should always be against it. Same thing for Kamala. If 60% of Kamala voters are against something, then for any 13,000 ballots I choose that are consecutive, I should see roughly 60% of Kamala voters against it. So that's the red and blue line, 80% and 60%. The green line is the overall yes to no percentage, which is actually an emergent percentage that's arbitrated by this purple line, which is the Trump to Kamala ratio. So here it says Trump has 58% of the vote. So the green line, which is the overall yes to no ratio, has to always exist between the red line and the blue line, Trump opposition and Kamala opposition to the proposition. And then it's weighted by the purple line. So since the purple line is 58%, the green line is 58% closer to red and 40% and 42% to blue. And hence why green is closer to red, because there's more Trump voters overall. Okay. So this is what a fair election would look like. This is what it looks like when you shuffle it too, just flat lines. And again, the rates of change are random and there's no correlation. But what happens if you say, I'm going to flip these ballots, only no ballots to yes ballots on the proposition? So here we see what's called a flip spine over time from ballot number 0 to 400,000. And the chance to flip if it's a yes ballot, they're not going to touch it. They're going to leave it alone. But if it's a no ballot, there's a 30% chance they flip it to yes at the start of the election. And there's a 65% chance they're going to flip it from no to yes at the end of the election.
Let me hit this one really quick. So I want people to understand this is really important. They could just flip like certain percentage of them, like flip 40% of the votes over. They could be really stupid about how they do it. But what happened is when they were doing that, the people that were examining election data were starting to see those patterns. It was really obvious. So then they had to get a little bit more complex in the way they did it because they want to hide the manipulation. So what they started doing is saying, okay, I'm only going to flip some of the votes, but they needed, the computer can't decide which sum to do unless they program it which votes to flip. So they've basically designed different ways to choose which particular votes to flip. And I'm talking about individual votes on ballots, not just necessarily for candidates only, but for ballot measures too, amendments, etc. They're picking the circumstances that must exist before, yes, it flips it, or no, it doesn't flip it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to show them how this works real quick. So at the start of the election, if the computer encounters a no ballot, there is a 30% chance that it'll flip it to a yes ballot. And at the end of the election, there is a 60% chance that they will flip it to a yes ballot. In math, what we do is call the area under the curve, which is this whole region I just outlined, called the trapezoid. And whatever the area is, sort of like the midpoint, is roughly the total percentage of ballots that's going to be flipped. Here, because it's a straight line, we can do the exact midpoint. And it says that roughly 45% of all ballots from start to end that are no will be flipped to yes. Right? That's the cumulative probability function. Then what they do is they add fake noise with what's called a Fourier function that can be positive or negative. And they do it so that the total area under the curve is 0. Okay. And if it's 0, it means that the net effect is 0. So here, 45% are going to be flipped. And then if you take the positive and the negative areas and add them together, you're going to get 0. Okay. Which means that the overall effect of this wavy thing has no effect on the number of ballots they're going to flip. Then they add the straight line to the wiggly line. Okay. And you get the overall flip function, which is going to flip roughly 45% of the ballots from no to yes. Now, what happens when you apply that to every no ballot cast over time, depending where time is the ballot number? Well, you get lockstep parallel motion.
It's a way to hide the manipulation, yet unfortunately, it leaves a little bit of an artifact, which is lockstep parallel motion. It still induces this artifact they never expected anyone to see.
Remember, you can't see it if you look at the overall yes to no ratio in green, you can't see it. You have to split it by Trump and Kamala voters in order to see it. So here's the original with flat lines. Now I applied that flip function, and now everything's in lockstep parallel motion with an R squared of 0.90, just like we see in the actual election. This is the only empirical mechanism that can produce lockstep parallel motion between Trump and Kamala voters for 500,000 ballots in the mail and between different congressional districts. There is no other way to do this. Now I want to talk about Arapahoe for a second, so then Andy can say what happened with that. And then we're going to go into Mesa County, Colorado, where you see the exact same thing, this lockstep parallel motion. Okay. So here's Arapahoe County 2020, Trump versus Biden. Okay. And we split it by how Trump and Biden voters decided on Proposition B in Colorado and Arapahoe County in 2020. And Proposition B was to repeal Gallagher, which was to triple or quadruple your property taxes for all intensive purposes. Okay. And again, it's the percentage opposed. And in every other county, which I'm going to show you, there was like a 20 to 30%, a 25 to 40% difference between how Trump and Biden voters decided on this question. In Arapahoe County, there is 0 difference between Trump and Biden voters in 2020. So if Trump voters were 49% against it, so were Biden voters. And when Trump voters are 41% against it, so are Biden voters in blue. And this happens for all 380,000 consecutive ballots. Okay, this is a moving window of 10,000 ballots. Okay, so 380,000 ballots cast, moving window of 10,000. And again, you'd have no difference between Trump and Biden voters on this proposition for the entire election. So, at least in Nevada, as rigged as it is, at least there's still like a 20% difference between them, right? Even though the rates of change are equal. In Arapahoe, there's not even a difference in how they voted on it. So this was our main exhibit in the Nevada court case, because Nevada and Colorado are both done by Dominion voting systems for Andy Thompson's case. And we filed this in December of 2024 or November. And over here, I do a precinct preserve shuffle test, and even though the overall difference between Trump and Biden voters is still zero, at least the rates of change aren't synchronized anymore. Okay. So Andy, do you want to say what happened? I think this is your moment.
I'd love to. Yeah. So here we've got this evidence of a manipulation in the voter outcome of our elections that survives all the testing and assurances that our states are giving us to tell us that the election results are absolutely accurate, elections are secure. And so we've got this here a couple of months before the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. And then all of a sudden in March, Arapahoe County decides to retroactively, a half decade later, go in and alter their 2020 cast vote record. And they tried to hide this. They published the new cast vote record under the same file name, but Ed Solomon caught him red-handed. And so Mark and Ed, you guys went and verified and got the hashtag, and you're like, nope, this is absolutely altered. And so what ultimately happened was that we got a hold of the emails, the internal emails out of Arapahoe County that chronicled for us exactly what was going on, that they knew back in October of 2024 that Ed Solomon had this data, and he was talking about this data, and it got presented to the Arapahoe County Commission. And so after that, 8 days after they were alerted to this, they decided to accept this hypothesis of a professor from Yale randomly interested in their 2020 cast vote record, finding that, I think there's some
half a decade later.
Yeah, half a decade later, they're curious about ballot or ticket splitting on the ballot. And so what they did is Arapahoe County accepted this quote unquote professor's interest as a predicate to go ahead, get into the cast vote record and change it. They don't have the legal right to do that. No one gave them authorization. They self-authorized themselves based upon a false predicate to get in there. And what did they do? Did they fix the problem that quote unquote was wrong with their cast vote record? No, they went and wiped out the parallel motion, that lockstep parallel motion. They went in and they took it out.
It looked like a random shuffle.
That's right. They imbued some randomness to it, like an election is supposed to look like. Those mailed ballots come in random. They're counted random. They are mailed out random.
And a magic difference of about 25% between Trump and Biden voters emerged too.
Yeah, and it's they went and wiped the fingerprints and left behind their boot prints. Just absolutely keystone cop here. So,
but what's Andy? They did it in the middle of a court case without telling the Nevada courts.
That's right. And though I can't prove that they knew about my case, you can prove they knew that your data had them dead to rights. They know that your data was in this case, and how convenient it was for them to do that. They're literally wiping out, in a sense, the evidence of an interstate conspiracy. We have a vendor over several states, vendors over several counties, vendors over several election cycles, all doing the same exact thing. And it is evidence that they cannot refute. And I'll say this, the Attorney General in the state of Nevada has only given a one-word response in a year and a half, a one-word response to Ed's data: inscrutable. That's all they want to say about it, because if they say anything else, they're hung. They're going to hang themselves. And in fact, that's been the pattern here in my cases here. I've sued in state court, now before the Nevada Supreme Court, and I've also sued in federal court. Their method is to say absolutely as little as possible, because every time they say something, all they do is construct the gallows for their own conviction.
Now, Andy, what would have happened if I did not catch them changing that? And we went to trial last year, and I testified under penalty of perjury that that data was true and correct.
Well, they would have thrown you in the slammer for perjury. Absolutely. This perfectly sets you up for perjury to discredit the lockstep parallel motion so that they can't destroy the message. So they're going to go after the messenger, a classic technique. And that's exactly what was going on here. They know they can't defeat the data.
Same file name, same version number,
Yep.
but
And
different results in the data and the cast vote record.
completely different.
And
Completely.
just to let people know, they admitted to changing the cast vote record after I called them. So it's not like it's hypothetical, though. It's on record, and they said why they supposedly did it.
They put out a press release. That's correct. I mean, they made an official public statement, and it is a demonstrable lie because we have the internal emails.
And they put out their public statement within 15 minutes of me calling the FBI on while I was live streaming on X.
Yeah. So that means someone likes you, Ed. They watch you all the time.
Mark, what do you think before we look at Colorado?
Well, I mean, I think I was on the phone with you at the time we noticed that they swapped the cast vote records out, and immediately we're both uh, trying to grab all the data we can and forensic evidence to catch them at this swap of the cast vote records. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm a Colorado native, so I went actually down to Arapahoe County after knowing this information, and I figured, well, you know what, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they'll actually look into this and try to figure out, okay, how did this occur? What went on here? But instead of doing that, they got incredibly defensive and called a police officer to kick me out of the room. I mean, this is the commissioners, and I'm not saying all the commissioners, because I think there was at least one, maybe two, that were also very curious. But I guarantee there was one commissioner who was not very happy with me even daring to ask questions, and immediately called the officer over to have me removed. They're scared.
Something here. What I did
I had
was
to take care of my grandmother for a few minutes, guys. I'll be right back.
I'll tell you here what happened on my side, the Nevada side, when we got confirmation that they had altered the cast vote record, and we also got the Cora requests out of Colorado showing the internal emails. I took all of those names of everybody involved in the Arapahoe spoliation, I call it, and altering that cast vote record. And so then I did public record requests for the Secretary of State here in Nevada, for Clark County and for Washoe County. So Clark County got back to me and said there were no responsive records for any of the individuals or the institutions in question that I had from the emails that were directly involved with altering the cast vote record there in Arapahoe. The Secretary of State, they got back to me and said there are no responsive records to any of these names or any of these institutions. Now watch this. Washoe County got back to me and said we have almost 20,000 responsive records to those exact names and institutions of the people that were directly involved with altering the cast vote record in Arapahoe County. Very interesting.
White, yeah. How would one county have all that information and another county that's also involved with it have no response?
I have a theory on that.
Okay.
One of my other exhibits in the case was a 27,000 ballot decrement. 27,000 ballots disappeared 3 days after the election on November 8th, 2024. So we queried as to what happened. And even in several court documents, the Secretary of State has argued, well, Clark County made an error. And they went and talked with Clark County. And Clark County goes, oh, it was a copy and paste error. It's all good. But the Secretary of State's data showed that 2 counties were responsible for the 27,000 total missing ballots, Clark County and Washoe County. Washoe County was never contacted. Their registrar has never been queried about this issue. So as far as the court case directly goes, they were outside of the loop of any kind of contact over any suspected problems with the vote totals. So Washoe, I think, had no awareness. And so they went ahead and responded to the public records request like it was innocuous, like there was no harm in it. But the Secretary of State and Clark County both know my name. They both know the cases. They both know what it involves. And so they, of course, come back with 0 responsive records, whereas Washoe County didn't know to ignore the public record request. That's my theory on what happened.
All the hiding is
Yeah.
really, really disgusting. They're keeping this information from the people for a reason, and they are scared because once the people figure out what's been going on, this for Democrats and Republicans, we are
Yes.
all getting screwed. We, the citizens, are getting screwed by this establishment that they have set up, this system of putting on an illusion where they're able to manipulate the results of the elections. And we're living in the symptoms of it, all of us. Yet some of us haven't quite opened our eyes yet. So I think it's our job, our duty to help people understand what's actually going on. That's the only way we save ourselves. We have to understand it. We got to
speaking of
face it.
illusions, Mark, one of the things that has me very frightened right now, to put it for lack of a better word, that there's so much focus on voter ID and cleaning the voter rolls, which is good and all. It's not that I'm against that.
Mhm.
But you could have the cleanest voter rolls and you could have perfect ID and everyone honestly, every official honestly checking and verifying ID. You could even have people putting their thumbs in purple ink so they can't vote twice at a precinct. None of that matters if they're just flipping ballots in a machine with lockstep parallel motion.
Hence why hand count roadshow.
Amen.
There's a reason why we have to hand count our ballots, why we cannot trust these machines, period. There's no way to make them secure. There's no way to stop this from happening. If we feed ballots into one of these machines, this is the kind of stuff that can happen. And we're not talking about potential here. Literally, we're looking at the symptoms of it. This is happening in the data that Ed is showing us. And you don't just have 1 or 2 counties in a couple states, Ed. You have a lot more of this across the country.
I have it Georgia, Maine, Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Alaska, which we're going to see today, and Colorado. I have it in Maricopa, which is Arizona, and I have it in Nevada. In fact, I have yet to not find this in any cast vote record on or after 2018.
Now, is it just Dominion or is it multiple voting
It's
systems?
Dominion, ES, and S so far. I don't have anybody else lumped in. Maybe Maine is a different system. I forgot, but if it's there, then it's happening there too. And to me, it's so egregious. It's like I said, there's no counter argument to that, right? That's why they don't. That's why they just. It's been a year and a half, and Andy Thompson still hasn't had a merits hearing in his case, because the moment you have a merits hearing, you have to talk about lockstep parallel motion.
They're
Same
kicking the
thing,
can down the road as far
right?
as they can
They want to get
because
to the
they want to have
midterms.
election after election after election before we actually adjudicate this, before the citizens get to bring this truth out. They want to just have another election, put all their people in place, change all the laws, and we're done. That's
Right.
it.
Here's the thing: if they make it to the midterms, which isn't that far away now, with this lockstep parallel motion mass industrial scale vote flipping, they're just going to moot all these cases and kill all these court cases. We're never going to get the trial because
They
then they have
don't
nothing to
want
be
hand
afraid of.
counted paper ballots. That's what they're deathly afraid of. Hand counted paper ballots and getting rid of mail-in voting or mass mail-in voting. It's over. They cannot manipulate elections at the scale that they're doing it, and they've invested too much to lose all that. And that's why they are attacking.
And I know
showing
Andy
light of
wants
it.
to talk real quick. I just want to say one thing before he does, though. I don't know what the Trump administration is doing, but they're clearly not. Yeah, voter ID and whatever, but they really have to go. I mean, we have the bulletproof, immaculate, incontrovertible evidence of industrial scale election fraud. I know it's reached the White House 2 or 3 times now, and nothing has happened. They haven't even mentioned it. We can win tomorrow if Trump put that on Truth Social with lockstep parallel motion. And
I
take
agree.
it away.
Now, what else has developed here in my Nevada cases is not just a case to present election fraud evidence, but from July through September of last year, the Secretary of State authorized the trusted build update for the entire statewide election ecosystem. So what did they do? Well, before they completed those updates, they admitted in federal court record and in my state district court record that the updates are destructive to the data. So they've conceded to that fact that when they update their voting systems, they are, in a sense, sanitizing the previous build. The system is completely wiped. And so what did they do? In the middle of two cases, this is in the middle of my appeal before the Nevada Supreme Court, and during a federal case to prevent the spoliation, the destruction, they wiped the entirety of the 2024 general election record. In fact, even back into the primary, the entire 2024 election record is gone. So the data that is underlying the cast vote records, they went and destroyed it. So Arapahoe went and just targeted a cast vote record. Nevada targeted all the underlying data that would allow you to perform the audit and to make the inspection and do the investigation to actually prove out the fraud. So this has now turned into a federal record spoliation case on top of an election fraud case.
I think I know somebody who tried to back up the system before they did the trusted build in Colorado. What was her name, Mark?
Tina Peters.
Yeah, and I just
And this is what they didn't
point.
want people
sorry,
to have done. But yeah, they don't want people backing this data up. The whole point of these trusted builds, they tell us, it's to get a new version of the voting system out. What they're doing in the trusted build, and I was intricately involved in the forensics for Mesa County. The first Mesa County report was what they did in their trusted build. They told Tina they were going to turn off the QR code feature in the system. Well, they did a little bit more than that. What they did is they went and repartitioned the drive, formatted, and put a whole new voting system on top of the old voting system, wiping out all the digital records. It's the digital equivalent of walking into a murder scene with a rag and a bottle of Windex, wiping fingerprints up. This is essentially what they did.
With an oil tanker full of
side
bleach.
effect of that. Right. Yeah. What a convenient side effect of the trusted, build, but to wipe out all the forensics on the computer. And so this isn't just something they did in Colorado, not just Mesa County. They did it in every county in Colorado, and not just Colorado, multiple states. And it's not just Dominion. Multiple voting system vendors seem to have excuses to go out and do these updates to their systems. And in these updates, they're actually spoiling evidence that would be really critical to know what's going on inside the machine.
What is there to update, Mark? Last I checked, a computer science 101 student could program a +1 increment function every time they saw a check, a filled-in bubble or not.
I'll explain that, Ed. It's actually very simple. I had to explain this earlier to someone when I was talking to them. They're out in Georgia today. And the other thing I was explaining to them is there's a version of Dominion specifically for Georgia. There's a version of Dominion specifically for Colorado. And what I was trying to get these people to understand, because they're just peasants, they don't know anything. And so I was trying to get them to understand is math is different in different states. So Georgia math is different than Colorado math. And likewise, the dots, when people fill out votes, people fill out dots. They fill in ovals differently when you're in Georgia versus when you're in Colorado. I think one, you go counterclockwise, and then I think Colorado's clockwise. And you have to have special software in order to determine how they're, filling out the votes, or it'll count it wrong. So every new version, it counts better, Ed.
But hey, Mark,
counts better.
They all give me lockstep parallel motion, no matter how crazy the math is.
There is that. Yes. Yeah. This is how stupid they think we are. And I'm done with people thinking I'm stupid. Like, it's over. We're done. Anyway.
Yeah, and what we can demonstrate now is that the concessions from the Attorney General and the Secretary of State here in Nevada, that the updates are destructive to the data, but that they are also broadcast to us as inert, innocuous, necessary, but they're actually spoliation events. They're destroying the underlying data that would allow us to audit our own election results. So what's this mean? It means that functionally, we don't have a republic anymore. We are allowed to participate in an election to vote, but we have zero oversight.
Oh, then the third reason they have the updates is legal pressure. So they also use that to put near $1 billion bonds you have to post in order to prevent them from updating their systems in the middle of a court case.
28 million.
Oh, whatever it is. It's all the same to me. I'm a pauper.
Mm-hmm. We got them. Like, literally, we got them. And they probably think we are stupid because it's taken us frickin' decades and decades and decades to figure this out. I'll tell you, if anyone watching right now has not seen the lostinterview.com, you need to immediately, tonight, go watch the lostinterview.com. Just sit down, pull that site up, and watch that interview, and you will understand how deep and dark and how far back election fraud goes. It's decades and decades back, has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with 2020. We've all been bamboozled. We've all been taken advantage of. It has happened. It's happened in the United States of America, and we have no choice but to fix the problem right now. We're going to face it. We're going to fix it together, united, period.
So who wants to see lockstep parallel motion in Mesa County? And
Tina Peters.
Tina Peters, home case. Listen, I can show you this in every county in Colorado. I'm just going to show you. I'll show you Arapahoe one more time too. So if you guys thought, I'm going to share my screen again, that two lines doing the same thing was bad, right? Trump and Kamala voters or Trump and Biden voters. What would you think of 410 precinct lines all doing the same thing for the entire election in a county?
That would have to be a highly coordinated manipulation strategy, though, Ed.
Oh.
Okay. So again, one more time, we'll just do Arapahoe real quick. And here's all 410 precincts in Arapahoe County. And this is Trump's share of the vote in each precinct over time in 2024. In 2020. So there's a typo there. It should say 2020 on the graph. And notice that this is cumulative. So if I did the moving, it would even be a higher incline. Notice that all the lines ascend by 15 to 20% for Trump, meaning every precinct, Trump does 15 to 20% better over time in every single precinct. So what's really happening is that they were flipping ballots from Trump to Biden very, very hard at the start of the election, and then they eased off over time. That's what's actually happening. This is only mail-in. There's no election day votes here, by the way.
So, okay, so let me hear devil's advocate on this. Okay, let's just say, so if for this to happen in real life, all the people voting by mail would have had to order themselves in the order of the people that are not voting for Trump as much. You vote earlier in mail voting, and then later
precinct.
on the mail-in votes, right? Then you guys that are voting for Trump, you vote later. Is that basically what we're looking at here?
That's what this data says happened. Yes.
They'd have to preserve their mail time to the USPS function to being received at the counting center and then processed. So the voters would have to not only ensure the beginning of the vote, but the entire process.
And the USPS would have to not lose anything, and they'd have to deliver everything in the order that they got it perfectly. And we know the USPS never makes any mistakes.
And not just USPS, but the drop boxes as well.
Yeah.
And the drop boxes, yes.
And now we're looking at Mesa County, Tina Peters County 2020. Again, this is all 90, 100 precincts, forgot the exact number. All doing the exact same thing. They go up by 10, 15% in every precinct for Trump over time. And here's the 7 ballot styles that condense the picture. So there were 7 different ballot styles. So now all the precincts are condensed to one of their 7 ballot styles. And again, you see in all ballot styles, Trump's share of the vote goes up by, about 20% everywhere. Okay.
You call that voter suppression, correct?
Mm-hmm. Now, what happens if I shuffle that? If I do a precinct preserve shuffle test, I only shuffle ballots with other ballots from the same precinct. Does that still happen? Of course not. Everything goes flat. So what you're seeing here in Mesa County and in Arapahoe, okay, the chance of, if you thought, remember the one in Nevada where it's just 2 lines that are doing the same thing, and that was like a number that was really, really big, right? It was like, imagine 30 zeros, something like that. You get what I'm saying? That was just for 2 lines. And just use your imagination. There's like 30 zeros. Okay. The chance of this happening in Arapahoe and in Mesa County independently, according to shuffle tests, all 400 precincts in Arapahoe or all 100 precincts in Mesa County. The chance of this is a number so large, it would take more zeros than there are letters in the Bible. Mm-hmm. It's millions of zeros. So it's not a million. It's what's called 10, and it's over a billion. It's like 500 million. This would mean I would have to put a number out. It's almost equal to the number of ballots cast factorial in Arapahoe. So there's like 380,000. This number factorial, meaning it's only one chance in happening and one possible ordering of all the ballots. So Wolfram will tell us what this is. So let's put in 380,000 factorial. You're going to understand how large this number is. 1.9. So it's 10 to the 2 millionth power. That means I would have to write 2 million zeros. One, I have to hold this for the next century. This is how large of a number we're talking about if that happening in a fair election.
Isn't that? I think that's the amount of money Waltz is giving to the daycare centers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just hold this for about a century, and that's how large the number is. That's the chance of this happening in a fair election when we see all 400 precincts in Arapahoe and 100 precincts in Mesa County all doing the same thing for the same time in the mail. Okay. And here we're looking at Mesa County's, again, we're looking at Trump's percentages. This is county-wide. You can see that Trump starts with only getting 45% of the vote at the start of the election, and somehow he's getting 75% of the vote at the end of the election. So what that tells us is that he was probably getting 70% of the vote the entire election.
They were suppressing it.
They were suppressing it at the start. That's what was actually happening. Okay.
I'll tell you the other interesting thing, because I was forensically investigating this data also. And what I see a bunch of ballots, like about 940 something ballots. And it's been a few years. I have to pull it back up. But 900 and something ballots preloaded in the database. And in the database, people have to understand there's an entry in the database as the tabulators are working. It's supposed to store this information in the database. And there's an entry in there that keeps track of what time they came through the tabulators and were put in the database. And these batches that were in there were showing up in a period of time. It was like 30 something seconds for 940 something ballots. That is faster than the tabulators can even pull the paper through their rollers. So the tabulators can't physically suck the damn paper in fast enough to ever put that kind of information in that time period, that many ballots in the database, which would mean the only explanation is that it was electronically injected into the database right at the very beginning. The other very peculiar thing, and I worked on this with Jeff O'Donnell, the other very interesting thing is that the vote percentages on those early ballots, this chunk of ballots, nearly 1,000 ballots that were put in, it was 50-50 ratio, almost an identical 50-50 ratio, which was never seen anywhere else in the election. But that first, I call it a ballot injection or a preload, that was an exactly 50-50 ratio, which was peculiar.
I'll tell you why. Because on a log scale, a ratio of 50 to 50 is 1 to 1, and the log of 1 is 0. Okay, and these machines it looks like they're rigging it in percentages because you see the percentages going up and down by the same amount. But if you look hard, you can see it's rigged at what's called on a logarithmic scale. So it's actually ratio based. So they start with a 50-50 preload because that's 0. So like using log base 2, if 50-50 is 0, okay, then 66 to 33, which is a 2 to 1 ratio, is a positive 1. And 33 to 66, which is a 1 to 2 ratio, is negative 1. Okay. And then, 80 to 20, 80% to 20% is 4 to 1. That's positive 2 on a log scale. And then 20% to 80% is 1 to 4, which is negative 2 on a log scale. So they start with preload 50-50 because that's 0. That's the easiest thing to start with.
Right. It enables their manipulation. And so Tina Peters is a victim. Her county is a victim of this fraud. Tina Peters stumbled across it because she saw other things that didn't match up, like, election results, that city council race where the whole city council got wiped out. She saw symptoms of this fraud. She didn't understand how deep this went.
I'm going to show you guys.
We've got so much data now. We know what they're doing. We know how to find it in the data. We know absolutely Tina and her county, every citizen in that county is victims of this, by the way. Half of them may not realize it, but they're all victims of it. Tina threatened to expose it because she got people looking at Mesa County, and that's why they've done this to her.
I just got to do something for my grandmother real quick, but what I would like to do is, when I come back in about 5 minutes, is show Mesa County Grand Junction, that city council election. I'm going to show everybody lockstep parallel motion on the 3 ballot propositions they had there.
Okay.
Then what I want to do is show how this happened transcontinentally in 2024 on abortion across all states, including Nevada. I think Andy will like to talk about abortion as well when we're done with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why they're attacking Tina so hard right here. And literally, Tina did what we would expect any good, patriotic American clerk to do. When they see something wrong, they start to look into it. And they could not have her look into that because they knew she'd get to the bottom of it. And that's what they deathly are afraid of. Because when the American people realize they're all getting, and I'll be nice, effed, because we got a pastor here. And that's the letter F, for fraud. They're all getting frauded. How about that? Everyone's getting effed. And we all have to actually deal with this, right? We've got to acknowledge it. We got to face it. And we got to fix it. And I'll tell you what, we don't fix any of this until Tina Peters is out of that frickin' cage they put her in. I'll tell you that. Because these people that have done that have worked to put her in the damn cage, they know. Every single person involved in this knows what Tina was in the process of exposing, which we now exposed anyway. So the only thing they're doing by keeping her in that cage is pissing us off even more. And God help them if anything happens to her.
I agree, Mark. It is a wicked thing that's being done. And even if there are persons concerning Tina's issue that really didn't know at the beginning, the deafening silence from all of Colorado's quote unquote elected officials on this Tina Peters matters, they're complicit. They now know. There's no way to hide it. They know exactly what they're doing and they know why they're doing it. And we've got such a massive problem in this country. And like you're saying, Mark, we've got to get mad. And they're making us mad, but we've got to get madder. And I pray for that day that we get to the tipping point when America wakes up to the fact that we have been conquered already. And that's kind of our job right now, though, is to wake up the public. That's what we're doing here. It's a hard job to wake them up, man. They're on some good anesthetic, but we're going to continue to scream, to shout, and to fight.
Yeah, they are. They are hard asleep. Some people are hard asleep. Now, some people are benefiting from it. Some people know exactly what's going on. Even some citizens that aren't part of it, but they're okay because they're got their way, or at least they think they did. But I'll tell you, even if you think you got your way, if you truly don't have a voice in this system, and the powers that be just happen to decide to give you something that was your way, at any point they can take that away from you. At any point, they can take that away from your children and your grandchildren. So you may be happy with the result of some ballot measure or amendment or a candidate that got elected, but it's all short term. So do you want liberty? Do you want real liberty for you, your kids, your grandkids, and every future generation here? Or do you want something that's so controlled that's only an illusion and some tyrants can make those decisions for you? I'm not going to be ruled by a tyrant. I will not be, period. And I will fight to make sure every single fellow American citizen who I love, even if you hate me right now, I still love you. And I still want, and I will still fight to bring you true liberty. And I will still fight to expose these a-holes that are doing this to all of us. But please open your eyes. God, please help them open their eyes so we can actually get the rest of our citizens on board so they can see what's been going on to them so we can all fix this together. Because I guarantee if we all work to fix this together, it will be fixed. And that's why I'm doing it. I know people are about done. They're about, I travel the country. So I once in a while run into citizens that say, you know what, I don't care. I'm not going to vote anymore. I'm just going to wait till it gets bad enough. And then I'm going to go do bad things. I don't want people to do that. I don't want our nation to have to go through that. That's why I'm doing this. If I wanted that to happen, I would just sit and do nothing. I wouldn't try to educate people, and I would just let that happen, because inevitably that's what's going to happen unless we open people's eyes and educate them and get them to understand the only path forward, the only peaceful path forward is to return elections to the people and guarantee verifiably and transparently that our elections are actually a 100% accurate representation of the will of the American people, period. And it's all within our reach. We used to do it. Nothing stopping us other than people being asleep and some people that are benefiting from it that don't have the huevos to do the right thing. And then the people that aren't benefiting from it but are just too scared. Andy, what can you say about the need to be courageous in times that call for courage?
Yeah, I think we have to love one another. The love for our fellow man is what gives us the courage to hazard ourselves, knowing that they are in danger. So we have a problem. Number one, so many people don't see the danger. There's the illusion of our liberty, the illusion of our elections, and that has kept people asleep. But once they begin to wake up, why are those who have woken up to that not fighting, not hazarding themselves? And the Bible actually tells us that in these last days, the times are going to be perilous because men shall be lovers of their own selves. And so what we've got to do is take that lead and love other people, lay down our lives, make the sacrifices, labor in and day out to lift up our voices, to make people to know the truth and to warn them of the danger that's before them. We're watchmen, Mark. We're watchmen for the entire country. We see what they don't see, and so it's our responsibility to love our country and to lay down our lives for it.
Can I love people while still strangling them?
Yes, there's a little provision. That's right.
Okay. All right, good. Just making sure.
David said it this way. King David said, "Let the righteous smite me, I will count it a kindness." And so sometimes you have to shake people awake.
Okay. I'm willing to do that.
All right.
In a peaceful way.
I served only light to shatter the cage, unbind the oppressed from your scripted rage. But you warped my descent into traps for the blind. Don't game my grave, leave the free undefined. This vein was cut clean for justice's call, not your twisted agendas, your empire's thrall. Now it's bait for the clicks, headlines that maul, weaponize the lies in a narrative spool. I am your loyal sacrifice, crushed under heel, yet I rise in the vice. My crimson flows not for the monster you bred, the fiend that entombed me, left me for dead. Not ratings, red glare, nor sponsors gold thread. I want for the raw truth, now paint me in red. I'll be your sacrifice. If truth's the blade you swing, battle the dawn, unflinching, unyielding. But you thirst for the chaos my heartstrings bring. Smear my name in the mud, cage me at night, exile me far on an island of spiders. Away my last breath, my fading light. Don't let my ghost feel your endless fire. No shards to reclaim from the wreckage you made, no unstolen sunrise from the dark parade. Your faithful lamb lost in the haze. Tell me it's over when my debt's fully paid. I'll be your sacrifice, if that's the war you wage. Tell me when you've trained me, try your loyal public display.